Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to a game of throws in World of Warships with me, your host, Rear Admiral Jingles. Episode 11. Can't be long till the epic season finale. Oh, what does he have in store for us there? Honestly, at this point, I'm not really sure, but I'm sure it's going to be epic. Anyway, today for your viewing pleasure, we have Resident Elvis here. Great name, by the way. Yes, North American server. In a Tier 7 domination battle here on the Estuary map, and he is of course in the, quite frankly, totally overpowered British Tier 7 light cruiser HMS Belfast. Why is it overpowered, I hear you ask? Well, one quick look at the consumables should answer that question for you. It has high explosive ammunition, unlike all or most of the other British light cruisers, not just armour piercing. It also has the holy trinity of consumables. Smokescreen to go undetected, radar to detect targets to shoot at while undetected, and hydro to provide early warning of any torpedoes fired into the smokescreen while you are farming targets undetected. It really doesn't get any better than that. She's also reasonably fast. She has a lot, 12 in total, of 6-inch guns, which fire, as mentioned, both high explosive and armour piercing shells, and while she is lightly armoured, you're not going to be bow tanking any battleships in this thing, and I would recommend against trying to bow tank any heavy cruisers in this thing, but she does have enough belt armour that if angled, anything that strikes her bow, stern, deck or superstructure is probably still going to hurt, but she'll be able to bounce even 18-inch armour piercing shells off the belt with careful angling. You do still have to be careful, but she's not an Emerald or an Omaha that's going to get citadelled by a battleship from any angle. So, Resident Elvis, remember he has radar. He's moving up to a position where he can cover 2 of the cap circles with his radar, actually 3 from here. Now note the friendly Mutsuki, you can see him on the minimap. He was approaching the cap circle at Delta, but then the cap circle started getting flipped. So he's now, well, he's playing it cautiously. I'm not going to say he's wrong to not enter that cap. You can see the enemy destroyer smokescreen down there. But the Mutsuki has the best stealth of any ship in this battle. So while I'm not prepared to say he's wrong to just lurk and loiter around outside the border of the cap circle, he could probably have gotten away with just slipping into the border of the cap circle, contesting it, preventing the enemy destroyer from flipping it. There he is. And he would have probably still been safe. Plus, he's got a radar cruiser backing him up, as well as the Agincourt over there, Barnacle Collector. We're going to be seeing quite a bit of him in this replay. And no enemy destroyer wants to be caught inside the shooting range of an Agincourt's secondaries. You'll note that Resident Elvis's RPF indicator is now pointing towards the Tiger over there. So this is a skill that points towards the nearest enemy ship, spotted or not. Which means the Tiger is now the closest target. And the Agincourt, Barnacle Collector, is asking the Mutsuki, where are you going and what are you doing? And the Mutsuki is replying, I'm trying to stay undetected and spot targets for you, which is admirable. That's what destroyers are for, after all. He's now nosing into the cap circle. The team have just lost their first destroyer, Nicholas, over in Cap Circle Alpha. So, yeah. Not a great start. Here comes the Tiger. So the Tiger is going to be occupying Resident Elvis's attention for the moment, because he is definitely the biggest threat. Meanwhile, what's the Mutsuki up to? Because the enemy destroyer has now just been spotted. There it is, a Janway. And you can see the Mutsuki there, who was about to enter that cap circle, immediately slamming the brakes on and doing a U-turn, even though he's got way better stealth than the Janway, and could easily have kept him spotted. Oh well. Never mind. Time for Resident Elvis to step up and do the destroyer's job for him. He is, however, this looks like a very, very well-aimed airstrike from the Eendracht. Pops the smoke, because the radar is about to follow. Yeah, he did take a big hit from the Eendracht's airstrike. There goes the radar, there's the Janway. And reversing? Really? There may be torpedoes on the way. Might be time to use the hydro. This, of course, is a perfect example of what it is that makes the Belfast overpowered. It's that combination hydro, smoke, and radar. And yep, there are the deep water torpedoes. Notice the Mutsuki swerving to avoid the torpedoes there. Deep water torpedoes cannot hit destroyers. It's possible that the Mutsuki was just reacting in the heat of the moment, but it's also possible that the Mutsuki does not understand that he cannot be torpedoed by the Jianwei. Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt is trying to explain this to him. Look, just get in the cap and spot him. His torpedoes cannot hurt you. And to be fair to the Mutsuki, he is now getting into the cap, although he's getting a bit too close to the Jianwei. You didn't need to get that close to spot him as he left the smoke screen. Just lurking around outside the border would have been fine, but hey, whatever. It doesn't matter. The Jianwei's dead. The Mutsuki should now be undetected. Amusingly, it seems that the Mutsuki is not the only ship in this battle who does not understand that deep-water torpedoes are no threat to destroyers, because the Jianwei backed out of his smoke in order to try to torpedo the Mutsuki. You know what? The Jianwei is only tier 5. It's when you see people in Yu Yangs at tier 10 trying to torpedo gearings, and I have seen people in Yu Yangs at tier 10 trying to torpedo gearings, and then complaining that the gearings were hacking because their torpedoes were just passing harmlessly underneath them. It's not the torpedoes from the Jianwei that is the Mutsuki's problem at the moment, because apparently when Barnacle Collector and the Agincourt was questioning his excessive caution earlier, he's kind of taken that to heart and has turned into a bit of a demon. He's now charging the Eindracht, despite being warned that the Eindracht has hydro, and yep, the Mutsuki's dead. Oh well. Let's face it, he wasn't that much use to the team alive. I do have to say that Resident Elvis could have been making much more effective use of his armor-piercing shells here. I mean, I know he's probably excited at having a British light cruiser that actually has high explosive, but armor-piercing against the Eindracht? I mean, he's still doing nearly 4,000 damage per salvo. So it's not like he's making a critical error here. But armor-piercing would probably have been more effective. And the Eindracht completely overcommitted as well, of course. I mean, yeah, he's dead. He wasn't much use to us alive, but he's not that much use to us dead either. YouTube gets a bit upset if I repeat what he's actually saying there in chat, but, well, you know, you can all read. That in reaction to Barnacle Collector and the Agincourt telling him, run, run, the Eindracht has hydro. So, doesn't appear to take good advice very well. Classic example of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is defined as, in psychology, a cognitive bias whereby people with limited knowledge or competence in a given intellectual or social domain greatly overestimate their own knowledge or competence in that domain relative to objective criteria or to the performance of their peers or of people in general, which is a highly technical, long-winded and hoity-toity way of saying too dumb to know that they're dumb. Anyway, things are not going particularly well. I mean, they're not going particularly badly, but they are 200 points behind, and they only have one cap circle. Ironically, it's the Agincourt. Yes, Barnacle Collector and the Battleship is now flipping the cap circle at Delta that our little mentally challenged friend in the destroyer was completely unable to do. He could be getting some assistance from the Omaha. If you have a look on the minimap, you can see. But that Omaha is probably doing the smart thing, because he's giving broadside to potentially 2 battleships here. Oh no, the Tiger's down. Well, he's given broadside to a Julio Cesare and a Chumphon, which is nearly as bad. I mean, the Omaha is basically made out of citadels, and can be citadeled by a battleship from any angle. So, getting his ass into cover behind an island is the smart thing to do. The Omaha has very floaty 152mm shells. It's basically made for island humping. So that's not a terrible idea from the Omaha, and he is in fact going to be advised to do exactly that from Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt, purveyor of all kinds of good advice during the course of this battle. Even if a lot of the time it's completely wasted, and the recipients of the aforementioned good advice completely ignore it, die as a result of ignoring it, and then rage on him in chat. Because, you know, reasons. It's always easier to blame somebody else, isn't it? Oh, great news. Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt just finished off the Julio Cesare at more or less exactly the same time as Resident Elvis in the Belfast finished off the Chum Fon, which is going to be fantastic news for the Omaha over there. I mean, it's more or less completely safe now for him to back out from behind that island, and heading behind the island was a good move, given the circumstances. But now, well, Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt is going to be slowly, because the Agincourt isn't fast even going forwards, but he's going to be even slower reversing into that cap, because they do need to take it. They've gotten 2 kills, but they're still 100 points and 3 cap circles behind. Malazzo over there definitely needs some assistance. He needs to not die. The team can't afford to lose any more ships. Resident Elvis coming to the assistance of the Lazzo, targeting the Dallas. As long as the Lazzo survives this, they're going to be in a good spot. And the Lazzo is angling away as the Dallas fires armor piercing. He saw the broadside. Oh, that... Well, I'm seeing return fire from the Lazzo. He hasn't died yet. Again, I can't help but feel that Resident Elvis would have had better results here if he'd loaded the AP here, although he's missed his opportunity now, and the high explosive is still doing damage. More importantly, the Lazzo has survived. They're still more than 100 points behind, but the Agincourt, Barnacle Collector there, is now almost completed flipping Cap Circle Delta. The Omaha, to be fair, it did kind of take him a while to turn the ship around and then negotiate his way between those islands. He's heading over there to assist, but he's going to be too slow, and in fact the Lazzo is going to make it there ahead of him. I'm not saying the Omaha was no use to the team alive. I'm just saying, you know, he's a tier 5 light cruiser in a tier 7 battle. He's done well to survive as long as he has. So let's not be too harsh. Although I think Resident Elvis was starting to get a little bit frustrated with the Omaha's lack of progress there. I mean, the instructions he was giving him were, Omaha, sail your ship to the circle with the D in it. No room for misinterpretation there. Anyway, it's all good. They've taken the cap, 2 cap circles each, and Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt and Resident Elvis here in the Belfast have correctly assessed the situation. I mean, they are still going to need at least 1 more kill, and preferably 1 more cap circle as well, but it is more important that nobody dies. And right now, Lazzo, yes, we are looking at you, because the Lazzo is on a sliver of health. So, if he can just stay hidden and not attract any unwelcome attention, but they are going to need to sink something. The enemy Nagato just popped up on full health. The Dallas and the New Orleans are still lurking around somewhere to the south, and the Rook just popped up in order to take a shot at and sink the Lazzo. Oh well. I mean, the Lazzo did have only around about 3,000 or 4,000 health. Staying alive was a big ask. Unfortunately, his death means the enemy team are now a good more than 200 points ahead. And with that points lead and cap circle parity, both teams have 2 caps. The enemy team now basically need to do nothing in order to win. So here's where the Nagato in particular decides that he needs to win just that little bit harder. Oh, and the Agincourt, Barnacle Collectors managed to nuke the New Orleans. Good job. They're still behind on points, of course, but it's only about 130, 140 points. So what they really need now is for the enemy team to have a sudden pants-on-head moment, a sudden, inexplicable and fatal rush of shit to the brain. Yes, Nagato, we are talking about you here. What the hell are you doing? What? He's trying to win harder, basically. He's sitting there on 2 kills. He's thinking, I want my Kraken. Oh, this is not how you get it, sunshine. Resident Elvis's team are behind. They are the ones who need to push and potentially make the mistakes for you to capitalise on. You do not need to push into them. They're the ones who are losing. He's going to beat you on the island now, isn't he? You can see the penny dropping in real time. Oh, I've bitten off more than I can chew here. I'm going to die. I should turn over. Oh, shit, where did that island come from? And here's where he commits the real fatal error of judgment. He's gone undetected. So all he has to do now is nothing, but he cannot resist firing the guns and going detected again. I mean, Resident Elvis was going to pop out of the smoke screen and reacquire him anyway, but now he doesn't need to. Shots are in the air. There's one fire. Oh, that was a big hit, probably from the friendly Nagato. He's going to hold his fire now. There's a double fire. He's about to burn to death. Nobody needs to do anything. Oh wait, he's fired. Okay, it's perfectly safe to open up again and just seal the deal. But that looks like some 16-inch armor piercing on the way in, and yeah, he's dead. Friendly Nagato kills the enemy Nagato. There's the Dallas. Hang on a second. Let me just... Oh yeah, Barnacle Collector in the friendly Agincourt. Still on reasonable health. Unfortunately, we are still not ahead on points because despite Barnacle Collector's... He's just full of good common sense advice in this battle, which of course nobody is paying any attention to, despite his advice to the Omaha to not show broadside to a rook and get behind an island and use it as cover. The Omaha died in open water, broadsiding a rook. The rook, however, dies as soon as the Nagato can reload his guns, and the Dallas falls victim to yet another high explosive salvo from Resident Elvis's Belfast. And that means the Oklahoma is the only surviving enemy ship. Now, Barnacle Collector over there in the Agincourt is on very low health. The Iron Duke over there doesn't have a huge amount of health, and while Resident Elvis has a fair amount of health, he is still in a light cruiser, and that's an enemy battleship. But they are now comfortably ahead on points. And even with 2 cap circles apiece, there's no advantage there for the enemy team. They would need a 3rd cap in order to close the distance, or sink something. And all the enemy team has to do now, well, I say the enemy team, I mean that Oklahoma. Ooh, I'm actually quite surprised that Resident Elvis got spotted there. I would have thought that those overlapping spits of land from the island would have blocked line of sight, but I suppose it's logical that if he could see the Oklahoma could see him too, but he sees the Oklahoma's return fire swerves, and the Oklahoma's 14-inch armor piercing does some damage, but nothing critical. Now, here's the thing. That Oklahoma needs to kill something in the next just under 3 minutes in order to win. And Resident Elvis's team need to not die in the next just under 3 minutes in order to win. So why is Resident Elvis closing in order to kill him? Well, I know that looks like what he's doing, but that's not actually his intention. He's radared in... Oh, shit. I am actually very surprised the Oklahoma was able to fire over that island, but he did. Resident Elvis took it on the belt, but he's decided that's way too many chances taken for now. He's slowing and he's popped his final smoke. The Iron Duke's going for it, though. Iron Duke, what are you doing? Oh, did you notice the fireworks that the Oklahoma just shot off? That means he's got Bill Halsey as his commander, and he just earned the Confederate Award. And that means one of Captain Halsey's special talents just activated, and he's now shooting 20% faster. That's not good. And I know it looks like everybody's closing in order to finish that Oklahoma off, but that is not the intention. You can see that Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt, he's not being tempted to close in around the side of that island to get some shots off. He is, in fact, maneuvering into a position where he can keep the island between himself and the Oklahoma and not die to the Oklahoma's 14-inch armor-piercing shells. And that's the advice he's given everybody, because he's not just an all-round good egg, snappy dresser, sparkling conversationalist, he's also a purveyor of the finest, most common-sense advice ever. And it looks like Resident Elvis is closing in to finish off the Oklahoma, but again, that's not what he's doing either. He popped his radar earlier, so everybody would know where the Oklahoma was so they could hide from its guns, and now he's closing in order to do the same thing with his hydro. Barnacle Collector still giving great advice with just a minute to go. Do not push. Don't go in, Duke. Iron Duke, what are you doing? The Iron Duke responds, I need blood. Yes, the red mist has descended. The Iron Duke is no longer capable of logical or coherent thought. All he needed to do was nothing. Resident Elvis even put himself at not inconsiderable risk, considering that the Oklahoma needs a kill, in order to spot the Oklahoma to make it as easy as possible for everybody to hide from him. But no, the Iron Duke had better ideas. Oof, there it is. Come on, at least try to ram him. It's a points neutral exchange. You'll still win. Nope, nope. I mean, come on, you knew this was coming. The video's called A Game of Throws. 20 seconds to go. Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt at the last second tries to get around the island and maybe get the killing shot off, but there just isn't enough time. Yeah, there's always one, isn't there? And today it was the Iron Duke. And on that somewhat depressing and yet at the same time entirely predictable bombshell, Resident Elvis's team snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. My sincere commiserations to both Resident Elvis in the Belfast and the, it has to be said, excellent teammate Barnacle Collector in the Agincourt, who did exceptionally well considering the matchmaking, and of course Lazy Titan as well in the Nagato, I suppose, who we didn't see an awful lot of in this battle, but he definitely pulled his weight. Unfortunately, yeah, it was all for nothing. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.